Hey guys, we're about to rekindle your love for homemade biscuits, so stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to Appalachia's Homestead. Welcome into our kitchen. We're going to make some goodies for you today. We're making brown sugar biscuits, y'all, and they are so delicious. We're going to show you how to make it. The first thing that you're going to notice is this is going to be running through my basic recipe for biscuits, but we're going to add a little zest to it, if you will. If you're making biscuits, let me tell you right now, the first thing you need to do is you need to run over to your stove or your oven, and you need to go ahead and set it and start preheating it for 400. I bake my biscuits at 400. Now, depending on where you live and your elevation, that could vary a little bit. I understand that, but for us, it works at 400 degrees. So she's already heated up and ready to go. The next thing that I'm going to tell you to do before you start messing with your biscuits is you need to prep your milk if you're going to make buttermilk. My cow is not producing milk for us right now because she's in a dry up period because she's about to have a new calf. So I'm not milking her right now. Everybody's getting a little bit of a break, but I miss that raw milk so much. And that buttermilk is fantastic. It's the best. But I have to recreate it if I'm going to make biscuits. Simple stuff. Here you go. You're going to use right down here 1 cup of cold whole milk. Okay, you don't have to use buttermilk for this recipe, but I'm telling you, it's the best. So what I've done for the recipe when I make biscuits now, because I don't have raw milk from my cow, is I'm simply going to use 1 heaping tablespoon of the white vinegar, okay? And I'm going to put it into my cup of whole milk. You want to do that first before you start using it in your recipe, because you want it to set up a little bit and curdle and get going with the whole buttermilk effect, if you will. So that's why that's first, okay? So she's sitting there getting all ready to go. Okay, we're going to go through the ingredients. Very simple. I've pre-measured so that the video is shorter and easier for you to watch, okay? That's what that's done for. All the ingredients are back here, but here we go. I have right here pre-measured out for you 2 cups of all-purpose flour. That's the only flour that I use and prefer, so I'm going to have to add things to it. So that's already in there ready to go, 2 cups. Then I'm going to add in 2.5 teaspoons of your baking powder, not baking soda. So that's going to go in here. You ready? We're going to do it. Plop. The next thing I'm going to add in is the baking soda. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Not even a half a teaspoon going right in there. Plopped her right on in there. Moving on. Then I like to add a little bit of salt. It's about a half a teaspoon or so, just to give a little more flavor in there. So we're going to put that in there. And I'm simply going to mix the dry ingredients. Just lightly fluff, lightly mix it. You got to get all your dry stuff mixed up, guys, before you start adding all the wet in there, okay? Or add the next ingredient that's coming up. So you want those just thoroughly mixed through. And I'm going to warn you right now, the countertop's going to change. It's not going to look all neat and pretty. And neither are my hands, and that's okay. We're making biscuits. All right, let's get to the next ingredient. All right, guys, we've got our flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt all mixed. You saw that. Next phase, you're going to add in butter. I don't use Crisco, and I don't have lard. We should soon, but I'm going to use butter. It makes a huge difference. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut in 6 tablespoons. You could cut it down a little bit to 5 or maybe 4, but I go with 6. So I've already pre-measured. I've already sort of slightly measured. I've cut out my tablespoons, okay, and it's very cold butter. So I'm just literally going to cut this in as fast as I can into the flour. Nothing fancy about it, and I'm telling you, you're going to be working with your hands, and it's going to get on you. It's okay. That's part of it, right? Who doesn't love homemade biscuits? Now, at this point, like I told you, you are simply making homemade biscuits. There is a huge difference, and there is an art to it, but it's not difficult. So whether you're using your conventional oven or whether you are making them on your wood stove, which is super easy, by the way, easy to do and a good skill to have, got to go through this phase. We're making real biscuits. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm simply going to, now some people have those cutters, and I have the same cutter. I really thought that they would help. But to be honest with you, I like to just wash your hands and just be ready to get in down and dirty with the biscuit. So you're not seeing anything other than a really good homemade biscuit recipe right here. okay? But remember, you want to work your dry ingredients, and I am literally working this cold butter in, and it's going to make it coarse, okay? It's not going to be light and fluffy as you saw before. It's going to start really working in to be a little bit more of a cornmeal type texture. And that is what we're going to work here just for a minute, and we'll show you the next step. All right, guys, I think I've got it where we want it. You'll just kind of feel through. You might have a few small lumps here or there, but it's just butter. That's good. You're going to add your next ingredient. This is where the magic happens. Now, you don't have to do this if you want good old plain biscuits, but I'm telling you, it's worth doing this. All right, so I've got this worked up. It's a little bit coarse. I like that. You're going to add in a half of a cup in this old measuring deal of brown sugar, okay? And you're then going to work it into your entire mixture. And again, because it's brown sugar and I packed it, you do want to work through some of those little lumps in there, okay? So you're just going to take another minute or two, and you're just going to work through, and you can see how it's changed the texture. From the butter now to the brown sugar, it is more of a coarse texture. All right, I'm going to mix for another minute, and we'll get to the final phases. All right, guys, we've got it mixed. We've got everything going, and the brown sugar and butter is all mixed in. Here's that milk I was talking about. It's nice and ready to go. I'm going to put it into the mixture. That's 1 whole cup. Get it all in there. I'm going to mix it all around. Now, you're going to notice something. If you make biscuits a lot, and I know a lot of you guys out there do, this dough, because of that brown sugar being added in here, does make it a little extra moist. So I've noticed that when I make these, right before I start to really knead it and mix it on the countertop, I have to add extra flour, okay? Because it does tend to change the texture quite a bit because you want to have to roll it out. So be prepared for that, okay? So that's why I've got this flour over here in this bowl, and yeah, it's going to get all over, but that's part of it. So you can see that it's a wet, sticky dough, and it varies. So I'm going to really sock it to it here. I noticed that when I made it the other day, it was a little bit drier. So, you know, while we're measuring and pre-measuring and doing all these things and flopping biscuit dough all over the countertop, it's going to vary a little bit because I may have packed a little bit more versus a little bit less of that brown sugar, or my exact measurement might have been just a little bit off. So anytime you're baking, those ladies out there will tell you that it will vary. So I'm just mixing this over, and I'm going to put it on the countertop. So it's still sticky. I'm going to push it out of the way. No, I don't have a cutting board. Don't worry about that. All right, so I'm going to mix it on here. Now, you'll see that I'm going to end up putting this on my skillet differently than, say, cutting the biscuit. And it's all over me, isn't it? So, but that is okay. I'm going to move this out of the way, y'all. So I'm just mixing this, flopping it over, mixing it in the flour, rolling it over. All right. So I'm going to wash my hands just to make it a little bit easier on me, and I'm going to get my rolling pin ready, and we'll be ready to roll. All right, guys, we've got it out of the bowl. We've got it where we want it here on the countertop in the mess, and I'm just going to roll it out. Now, I am not rolling this because I'm going to cut it with a biscuit cutter or a ring top or anything like that. I have found out with my handy dandy Lodge cast iron skillet over here, one day a light bulb popped on for me, and I thought, why am I having to cut and roll to do? We're going to transfer this whole thing over here, okay? And then I will literally, actually it's a little bit. All right, so what I do to transfer it, because this is a little bit stickier of a dough, I'm going to go ahead to, so I'm going to make it into 4 sections. This is what I do. You can cut it with a biscuit cutter and make sweet little round ones, okay? It's not going to change it. But this way, I don't waste any of the dough. Because well, you don't waste it. You end up wanting to eat it. So, there we go. So this is what I do. And it might be a little bit sticky, because like I told you, the dough is a little bit stickier. This is how I make my biscuits now. I don't cut them with the biscuit cutter anymore. So some of my biscuits, if you will be a little bit bigger than others. And that's okay, because we just eat that right along. And I'm going to cut it this way. Now when I bake it, this particular dough, I do notice that I have to cut it a little bit. If I'm making regular biscuits, I don't. And like I said, it's because it's a little bit more wet and it's a little stickier. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the oven and we're going to bake it at 400 degrees, which I've already told you to preheat, and it's going to be about 15 to 16 minutes. So let's see how they turn out. All right, guys, 15 minutes later, here they are. Now, because it was a wet dough, because of the way that I just put all of the dough on there, you do have to do a little bit of recutting. But I'll tell you what, it's not near as messy as trying to cut out individual biscuits. Now, what I have found to go really, really well with these type biscuits, well, I don't know of anything that wouldn't, but bacon and eggs. I'm going to tell you what, that is fantastic. So I'm going to take one out, maybe 2, so you can see what we're talking about here. And that's how they bake up. So like I told you, it's a little bit more of a wet dough, but it bakes up beautifully and fluffy, and boy, they are hot. Put you some butter on that, and it just has this ever so slightly sweet taste. And so this is a wonderful treat. I could eat this as a dessert. Woo, love it. So we hope you enjoyed this. Try this out. I'm telling you, it's going to become a family favorite. There's no doubt in my mind. And some bacon and eggs with it is the way to go. So we appreciate y'all watching here at Appalachia's Homestead. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. This is certainly going to be on Pinterest here in just a few minutes. So check it out. It's the way to go. Y'all take care out there. More butter. Look at that. Woo. That's how we do it right there.